All right, so welcome everyone. It's about 5 past the start time, so let's get started. The point of this is to really go over some of this. I suspect will be a review for many of you, but for some of you who are new, we've included that for a reason, so that if you've never been to SCORE, understand how to use it, that this is what that's for. I'm joined by some really important people, so I'll start actually with the back. Carrie Barrett is our managing editor. Carrie. Liz Mooney is our editorial specialist, and I have Dr. Lee Grimm here in the third row. Lee's going to talk a little bit about two things. One is actually how important his contributions and his program's contributions have been to SCORE, because while we're going to talk about how to use SCORE, we really want to also talk about how to participate and collaborate with SCORE and produce some scholarly activity. And he and his program have done a really nice job of actually producing amazing content for us. So I definitely want to get some input on that. And then there's definitely some time for discussion and questions and things like that. So I'm going to go through some slides, but if you have a question, just raise your hand or yell out, and we can easily stop. SCORE is organized across the 7 competencies, so that's, I think, self-evident. Medical knowledge and patient care are by far the biggest. It was a very iterative process to figure out how we organize all of these different competencies and categories. I always pick this example of anesthesia because when I was a resident, we didn't learn any of this. It wasn't part of our curriculum. You'd go to an anesthesia book for that. It wasn't necessarily in any of the surgical textbooks, but it's obvious that we as surgeons need to understand the different methods of anesthesia. And this gets looked at every year. And so there are things in the SCORE curriculum that were there 4 years ago that are no longer there. And there are things that are now there that weren't there. So we really try to update it and keep present with the times. You should know that the American Board of Surgery has a designation of core and advanced. I'm sorry, the right side isn't projecting properly, but within each of these modules, they'll be designated as core and advanced. It makes no difference in SCORE, actually. It's a designation that the board uses on their examinations. So ABSCII, QE, CE will look, if any of you have given oral board exams, it says in the oral board whether this is a core or advanced topic and what part of it is core and what part of it is advanced. So it's worth paying attention to, because if, for example, if you're designing your curriculum for that week and you see a bunch of core modules and you see a bunch of advanced modules and you have to make a choice, maybe you just do the core modules. The advanced modules are there. They're fully fleshed out because we, for example, know that your resident's going to scrub on a Whipple and needs to understand all the details of a Whipple. But I'm certain that a Whipple is an advanced module that they probably don't need to know all that detail about. So here's a good example using some anorectal stuff. So you'll see the core stuff is what you'd expect. So for your exams, they need to really know soup to nuts on that. For the advanced, it's really just initial stabilization and management. So that's an important designation that you just need to explain to your trainees. But whether you're going into the anal cancer module or the anal dysplasia module, it'll be fully detailed because we do know that residents are using this for point of care. It's always worth going back and looking and seeing what a module looked like. So if you haven't been here in 10 years, this is what you're used to seeing SCORE look like. A PDF with learning objectives, with some resources, which are all external textbooks that would be licensed, but they were somewhere else. This is what SCORE looks like now. It's very much mobile optimized. It's really good with search. This is using a module that Marcy Feynman, one of our editorial board members, just revised, initial management of trauma. So obviously a very, very high profile module. You'll see it was core, and all the detail is now embedded within the module. It's no longer sending you out to another resource. It's right here that they can look at. And it's when we get to the bottom of this module, we see all these hyperlinks. So no longer do we duplicate all that information within each module. We just send you out. There was a chest tube one. This is tension pneumothorax. You're seeing FAST. You click on that, it takes you to the other module, so that gets fully fleshed out. It's very similar to the Wikipedia Wikipedia model. You go in and it'll take you. You can jump around and see what all these other things look like. This is the way that it's organized across the different curricula. So in the last couple of years, many of you, I suspect, are here for general surgery, but we have 5 or 6 other curricula from surgical oncology to oral surgery to pediatrics to surgical critical care. And so now when you go into the module browse page, It's really organized like a textbook. It's very easy to find. Although I'm going to get to it in a second, but most residents don't do it this way. Most residents either approach the content because of search, because they're looking up something or they want to study something in particular. They're getting there through questions. That's a very common way to do it. Or they're getting there through TWIS, because TWIS is, I'll show you in a second, is this sort of automated menu that comes through that helps you control the volume of information for every week. I mentioned the different curricula, so it's important that when you log into SCORE, either as a faculty member, as a program director, as a resident, or a fellow, that you're putting in the appropriate role, so that, for example, if you're logged in as general surgery, you see general surgery content. You can still see all of the other ones, but the content for your curriculum supersedes all the content for other curricula. And it's always been our principle that whether you're a vascular surgeon or a pediatric surgeon or an oral surgeon, if you're on SCORE, you can see all that content because they intermesh so well. Obviously, the fellowship content is going to be different than the resident content. So a good example of this is either surgical critical care or surgical oncology. You could imagine that Whipple is covered in, well, I'll take something simpler actually. Maybe melanoma is covered in the surgical oncology curriculum, but also in the general surgery curriculum. We expect more from our surgical oncology fellows in terms of that knowledge and management than we would from the general surgery residents. And so you'll see that content delineated according to their expectations. And again, you can jump back and forth, but that it's very much role-based. We still have textbooks on the website. Probably the most important one that everyone tends to look at is Sabiston, and so you'll see that in there. We also have some really nice surgical oncology textbooks. We have some good oral surgery textbooks. We are probably seeing that the textbooks get less and less use as the modules now, every single module on SCORE looks like the one I showed you, with the content within the module with rich hyperlinks. So while these are still there, we don't think people are really going to them as often. This is TWIS that I mentioned. So the general surgery content is currently split over 2 years. It was just too much volume to accomplish in 1 year. I should tell you that for this upcoming year, we're actually expanding it a little bit. It's going to go to 2.5 years. We realized that we actually didn't need to follow the academic year just blindly. And so we've added in another 6 months basically of room so that we don't have to bundle and jumble or smash all these modules together. A good example of that is pediatric surgery. There are just so many modules in pediatric surgery that we have to get through. But do you really need 4 weeks out of your year devoted to pediatric surgery? Probably not, actually, if you think about what people are actually expected to do. So you'll see this coming year. You actually probably won't even see it because it's going to be behind the scenes, but you should know that in a 5-year residency, you'll get through the curriculum twice if you go through TWIS regularly. And here again, you'll see the color coding of core and advanced, so you can make some decisions. Maybe you don't cover the reconstruction, but you cover the core modules in that particular week. I think you all know that there's a shuffle the deck option for TWIS. So we send out, and we'll do this in the next couple, usually at the end of May or middle of June, we publish this TWIS schedule. I think it's already up it's not on this this particular page, but you can get access to the 24-25 schedule. People ask us that all the time because we know you're starting to schedule your faculty to be present for this. So it's already up. And then a good example is if, let's say I know nothing about vascular access, but I know a little bit about small intestine. If I'm on vacation, March 13th, maybe you want to just change that week around. So you're appropriate faculty member. So you can drag and drop any of these to suit your program. It may not be personnel dependent. It may actually be time of the year dependent. So maybe you want to put a couple of modules that you think are really important, or a couple of TWIS weeks that are really important before the AB site. We see that a lot. You can do that. If that Wednesday you happen to have a residency-wide retreat, you can swap out an off week and put it in there. The advantage of also spreading from a 2-year curriculum to a 2.5-year curriculum is we built in some more off time for you to build in some more buffer. So this is very customizable. You can't go back and unlock. You can't go back into the past. It's like life. That's why you see some of these locked. But going forward, you can change everything around. We have reasonably good reporting I will admit the interface is a little clunky and we're working on this, but you can actually generate really good data, and it looks like this, about your residents and your programs. And we encourage people to do this for their CCC reports. So twice a year, you can download this information. This report, actually, you can download on a live basis. And so we've seen programs take this. So let's say you have didactics on a Wednesday, you download this on a Tuesday afternoon, and you say, oh, well, this, based on my residency program, this question really tripped up a lot of people. We really need to cover this. I should maybe have led with this statement, which is that there's no one way to deploy SCORE in your program. Actually, maybe I should have led that, because if you came in thinking there was one way, there's not one way. It totally depends on you as program director, you as program administrator, what your residents are like, what your admin chiefs are like, what the content is for that week. And there's so many different ways to do this. And I hope you'll get some idea of what the different options are. If I were giving this talk to the residents, this is the only slide I'd need to show, because we all know that this is what they really use. They use the self-assessment, whether it's twist questions or the general question bank. We know that that's very popular. We have something like 4,500 questions in SCORE now across the board. We just continue to deploy more and more questions. It's really important to know that every question in SCORE links to a module. And so that's really important. That's relatively new in the last couple of years. And so it really helps us keep our questions current and accurate. We have a feedback mechanism in every single question, and we get a lot of feedback, either, and most of it's constructive, saying, the module doesn't say this and the question said this, or this conflicts with another question that I saw. But by linking it to the module, we can really be very hygienic about making sure that the modules agree with the questions and the modules agree with each other. So this actually has resulted in a huge improvement in the quality of the questions over the last really 4 to 5 years. The pre-intern curriculum, hopefully you know about this. You should have received an email about this if you're a subscriber, is open now. So this is a program between match day and the start of residency, whereby you can sign up your pre-interns. It doesn't cost you anything. We can use their current email addresses. They often don't have institutional email addresses to get them access. And we have a pretty elegant system now for figuring that out. James Giblin, who's not here, is our business analyst who does all of that work for us. We've sort of stuck with 3 menus. It's kind of like going into the restaurant. You have menu A, menu B, menu C. And if I remember correctly, one is based on perioperative care, like how to get a patient to the operating room. Another is a lot about non-technical skills, professionalism, and communication. And the third is some basic sciencey stuff, like electrolytes and acid base, things like that. You can assign all 3 if you want to. You can assign 1, you can assign 2, you can assign none. It's totally up to you. The point of this is to get the residents or the pre-interns used to playing around with SCORE. Before they're carrying a pager, before they're up to their ears and being interns, this really gives them a chance to do some work. You can assign this. That was the thing I felt was most useful about this. It was their first, or one of their first, administrative tests. Could you complete the test or could you not? And that tells you a lot, I think, about setting expectations for them coming in. So I also say this, we love feedback. So if you think there's another menu we should add or things we should subtract, we love to get that feedback and change it up every year. I think I mentioned the CCC report. There's a whole bevy of data you can get down from SCORE. I will say people ask us all the time about usage. How do you track usage on SCORE? And the only way to do it right now is time. Which is definitely a crude measure. So whether you spent 100 minutes or 10 minutes doesn't necessarily tell you about the quality of the usage. But I would definitely encourage you to avail yourself of the CCC report, as sort of blunt an instrument as it is. My CCC was, by the way, not the most mature CCC on earth, but we really benefited from any data that we could employ. And in this, and there's a little sneak preview of my presidential talk, but in the data universe that we are developing, the more data that you can download and really apply to your trainees, I think just makes it better. We have lots of assignments that people can use. They don't tend to get used a lot, but they really are in there for residents who are struggling, whether they need a remediation plan or a probation plan. If there are particular rotations that you want to set them up with specific readings or specific topics, we have that as well. The assignment page is not overly used, but it's certainly there. I should also mention that many of the things I'm going through are detailed in webinars that are on the SCORE homepage. I think it's under the Help tab, so you can do that. And by the way, if you're ever struggling with SCORE, if you spend 10 minutes trying to figure something out, literally just stop what you're doing and email us, because we will happily get on a Zoom with you and walk you through it. We never want you to struggle with it, because we deal with this all the time, and we know exactly how James and Carrie and myself are happy to get on it and do it. Similarly, if you're a new program and you're new to SCORE or just want a refresher, I do it several probably times a month, if not a year. I will happily get on a Zoom with you and walk you through it. We'll learn a little bit about your program to figure out what options might be best for your particular program. This is just another one of the progress reporting. ABSITE study plan's been in place for many years now. This came out, so ABSITE results came out in late February. And so you can take the ABSITE report, you can download basically all the topics an individual resident got wrong, and that can generate an ABSITE study plan. So for an ABSITE, for a trainee who's struggling with the ABSITE, or really anyone who got anything wrong in the ABSITE, which is probably everyone, you can generate a personalized ABSITE report, and then you can track it. You can assign it as a task to be completed. Their faculty mentor can help them with it. So it's just another way to track progress and hold residents accountable. I mentioned that there's no one right answer, but there are some principles. So we definitely think that it's the best use of SCORE involves self-study and group didactics. Those are really two important parts of it. So it's not just good enough for the trainee to be sitting there, churning through questions and then not actually digesting. I saw a couple of presentations earlier today or yesterday. It was Marcy Feynman's conference. They're sitting around in her video, and they're chewing over the content together. It's not just sitting with your phone by yourself. Similarly, residents can't just show up blind to the unprepared to the conference. They need to have done a little bit of prep work to really get the most out of the didactics. And so then, as we heard on today's panel, there's just so many ways to do it. You could have a PowerPoint that's narrated. You could go through questions and use that as your nidus for discussion. We have discussion questions, which are more open-ended. That's a really nice way to almost simulate oral boards. There's just so many ways to do it. And then that doesn't even speak to what the content is you want to cover. I would probably recommend, if you're getting into it, resist the need to cover all of those modules I showed you, even if it's just the core. You're probably better off picking off a couple and really delving into them in a more detailed manner. So much of SCORE is built on our volunteers who contribute. So we've dramatically expanded our editorial board over the last couple of years. So we now have 44 volunteer members. They're almost all surgical educators, many of them program directors, and each one of them brings their content expertise so that they can really manage. It's usually 6 to 8 modules within SCORE that's in their expertise. So, for example, I don't manage the vascular access module because I know nothing about it, but we do have a vascular surgeon or a transplant surgeon doing that. And the advantage of this also is we don't just have sort of the specialties you'd expect, but specialties you wouldn't expect. We have a urologist, we have a gynecologist, otolaryngologist, anesthesiologist, hospice palliative care. There's expertise that we've brought to bear in our editorial board that really enhances the content within SCORE and really keeps it up to date. We are in a constant cycle of module revisions. And so this, Carrie and Liz really do the bulk of this work, along with our editorial board and our contributors. We've really paid a lot of attention to reducing the redundancy between modules and certainly reducing conflict between them. We're always trying to make the modules clinically relevant. So anytime we're looking, for example, to overhaul a module, we sit down with the author and we say, think about yourself in your clinic or in your operating room, and how would you approach this patient clinically? How do you think about evaluating that patient with melanoma, and really bring that to bear? The beauty of SCORE is we can update on the fly and we can innovate, and we don't need to wait for a 5-year textbook cycle revision. We can literally deploy a module overnight, and Carrie does that routinely. So for example, in the last couple of years, we've deployed some DEI content that we thought was really important. There's all sorts of content coming out. For example, in ergonomics, we have 1 or 2 modules, and we have all sorts of new content coming out. We expect to deploy an endocrine surgery fellowship curriculum in August of 2024. It's a small specialty. It's not even a particularly big curriculum. It's about 40 modules, but just another, we saw a need and people were willing to volunteer for that. So that'll be coming out. We're really excited about 2 particular aspects that are coming out. Military readiness curriculum. This is really for our military programs and those civilian programs that train military residents. I distinctly, at Einstein, I had 2 military residents, same year, one Army, one Navy, and they were both going to be overseas or on a ship in July of their graduation. And I had this existential angst about how I was going to prepare them to do that, because it's not just a responsibility to them, but it's a responsibility that they owe to our armed services personnel. And so it's something we've taken really seriously. Sean Brown is leading that. He's part of our editorial board, a military surgeon with a lot of interaction with the Excelsior Society, which is the military surgical society. So I'm really excited about that. They're deploying something like 15 to 18 modules. And it's fascinating stuff. Carrie, Liz, and I have been on meetings with them. It talks about the paradigm shift of how you triage patients from the front line back to military bases. And it used to be that we had air superiority. I'm geeking out here. We used to have air superiority, so you could just scoop and bring people back. We no longer necessarily have air superiority, and so there's more of an emphasis now on treating patients in the field and stabilizing them to more of an extreme than they would. So it's just an example of using the expertise that we have through our volunteer workforce and constantly updating the curriculum. We have a couple modules coming out in informatics. That's clear. You've heard about that even this morning and yesterday, how important that is in surgical education and just in our clinical care. So that's coming out. And then international content. So if those of you who have residents who spend time abroad, interestingly, with the new ACGME requirements that force us to offer an experience in under-resourced areas, this might be a very timely content for people. And it's not just, for example, dealing with typhoid enteritis, which we never see here in the States, but it's also getting into ethical considerations. What is the ethical framework that residents need to go abroad with to really make the most of that experience? Operative videos. So this is the project that Lee and the University of South Alabama have just taken off with, and I have a sample of that, but I'll show that to you. And EPAs. Obviously, you didn't come to this meeting and not expect to hear about EPAs. They're obviously everything we're thinking about and talking about. We've been working very closely with John Mellinger, now Karen Brausel, and the entire EPA team at the board to make sure that EPAs really integrate very well with SCORE. To give you a sense of the breadth of SCORE, you can see, first of all, the different and the number of modules that have deployed. You can see general surgery is really the oldest of the curricula, and oral surgery is the newest. And you can see there's something like 5,000 questions across the different curricula. This is the work that Carrie and her staff do every year. So this is just in 2023, 54 modules, 3 of them new in general surgery alone. Total, we have 61 modules, and we revised up to 200 questions. That doesn't even account the number of questions we reviewed. Many of them didn't need any edits, but the revisions we try to make fresh, and you can see that across the different curricula. SCORE School Lectures, hopefully you've seen this. I see Mary Klingensmith sitting in the back, and this was her brainchild during COVID. Was really an effort to make sure that people had equal access to didactics, even when didactics were shutting down. And we've really run with this since then. And so our goal is to have a narrated PowerPoint, that's what these are, a narrated PowerPoint lecture for every single module. In general surgery, we think we'll get that done in the next 2 to 3 years. And this is from a number of reasons. One is, let's say you have a trainee who's post-call on the didactic day or out. You could tell them, well, there's a SCORE School lecture. I know you missed didactics, but go listen to the SCORE School lecture. We also think, and we've heard from focus groups, that trainees who like to listen to it on the Peloton or in their car or walking the dog, it's just another way to adapt to different learning styles. So I definitely encourage you to look at that. We've had a longstanding relationship with Emory University. And they just produce these beautiful images. We have almost 200 images over the last couple of years. And these are really just high quality images. They're owned by SCORE, so we're not subject to licensing agreements. These are our images, and they're really commissioned by us to accompany and enhance the SCORE content. Here's a video from Lee. His group just does an amazing job with this. I don't know if the audio will come through, but it is every one of these is narrated. It's a collaboration between USA and SCORE, and you see in the beginning. I don't know if that's projecting properly. You'll see in the beginning that there is an anatomy review, there's a clinical scenario. He's filmed this in 4K, and the views are always beautiful. And I won't go through the whole thing, but in many of these videos, anatomy is overlain, so you can really get a sense of what you're looking at. We're very careful to make sure people are oriented, because you can get a little disoriented if the camera view shifts around. We already have a couple dozen of these videos. We expect to have one now for eventually every core procedure in general surgery, and we're definitely going to expand these out to different videos as well. They're all designed to be short, usually 5 to 8 minutes. See, even on the SCORE video, I got a spam call. The mobile app. So we're really excited about this. The mobile app is built probably for the last 10 years that I've been giving this workshop. People always ask, so when's the app coming? So we finally committed to the app. It's expensive, and we really wanted to do it properly. It's built. It's actually waiting in the Apple App Store for approval. If any of you have contacts at Apple, we could definitely use a hand there. It's already approved for Android, so we're just trying to get through the Apple approval process. There are 3 versions of the app. Version 1 is built and about to be deployed. It is focused on questions. So not surprisingly, we wanted to capture residents' attention with questions. And it's not just sort of regurgitating the same thing that's on the website. It's really using and leveraging the opportunity that the app provides. So things like push content, leaderboards, interaction with other trainees to really make it a little bit more fun, a little almost gamification. Julia Shelton and her group at the University of Iowa have been really instrumental in giving us some ideas about how to develop this app. So we're really excited about this, and trust me, there'll be a lot of fanfare when it's finally available for download. I'll also mention that we're always interested in feedback, and so every year I say this, and many of you will contact us and say, hey, I've got some residents who are interested. We will always take you up in that. We really like to meet with residents. We'll probably assemble a little focus group and kind of spend some time with them and really learn how they use SCORE, both on their computers, their iPads, and their apps. Version 2 is going to be very much based around modules. So to, again, repackage those modules in a very mobile-friendly way and takes advantage of the app. And version 3 is going to leverage all those multimedia resources that I mentioned, illustrations, SCORE School, the videos coming from USA. There's no way to say this. We're so grateful for the support we have from the APDS and other educator community. We now have 12,500 trainees, 635 programs across 6 or 7 curricula. The per trainee cost is $200. There are no more fees in any other way. So it's really just $200. It's very simple. And that gets you access. It gets you a limited number of faculty accounts, but there are a couple of programs that buy more faculty accounts, but it's not that common. So it doesn't matter. It's very simple. It's $200. There's not much more to say. We've also allowed chief residents to retain SCORE access even after they graduate. So for those of your chiefs who are finishing in a couple months, they retain access through the end of September to get them through their QE. We thought we got a lot of feedback and want from that. And so before I turn it over, first of all, we're always grateful for the support of you all, for your support of SCORE, for your contributions, and for your feedback, certainly. I do want to ask Carrie if you could just come up because Carrie is the person who is just so good at making sure that volunteers get engaged with SCORE. And so I want her to just talk about questions and modules and other ways to contribute. And then I'm going to ask Lee to come up a little bit.
So hi, everyone. So we love volunteers. We really appreciate everybody's support of SCORE. So if you have any residents who are interested in surgical education, we would love to have them involved. What we do ask is that they are that they're supervised by a faculty mentor. It's a great way for them to learn, to really get a command of the material, but they're also getting scholarly activity, right? You can put it on your CV. And in addition to doing modules, they can do questions. We have a lot of faculty on our editorial board who love to teach residents how to write questions. It's a great skill set to learn, and we'd love to have you involved. We're also looking for image contributors as well. So if you have some images, some key clinical images that you want to include that you think would be a benefit to include in a module, please, let us know. That also can be put on a CV. So there's tons of ways of getting involved with SCORE, but we really appreciate your support. We couldn't do this without you. So it's great to have people involved, and I'll make sure if anybody's interested, I have a card here. You could just send me an email, let me know your areas of interest or your residence area of interest. I would also say that if you have a resident who's struggling, and maybe there's an area where they're really having a hard time, maybe you get them to work with you on one of the modules in that area of weakness. And then, they can get more of a command of that material. So, that's kind of all I have to really say, but it's, and also Score School. So that's another way, that you all can get involved. We're always looking for faculty to give, basically 10 to 15-minute talks. They're going to be PowerPoint presentations. I would get you in touch with Mads Bradley, who's responsible for the Score School videos. But they're basically just a PowerPoint presentation. You record it when it's convenient for you. And then that would be included as one of the resources for the modules. So in addition to running through a module, that resident can then, listen to that session on that specific module. They could download it. Again, if they're running on a treadmill, they can listen to the Score School. It's just another way of learning. So, we really appreciate your support. So thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Lee, you want to come up also? I'm going to ask Lee. So Lee is a program director at the University of South Alabama, member of editorial board, huge contributor in terms of videos, and also a colorectal surgeon. So if you can talk about how do you, give us some insight about how you use SCORE in your program, and then also maybe just a little tidbits about how you put that project together.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Amit. Yeah, so we keep it really simple with how we use SCORE. We're probably like most of the programs that don't have an army of surgical educators, that PhDs, master's, graduate students. It's just the PD, the APDs, and our coordinators. And so we don't have maybe the bandwidth to make it overly complicated, which is what we teach our residents about in surgery every day, right? And so we follow the twist. We follow twist even predating when I was at South. And it's just been really, really valuable. SCORE has always done the didactic part of their surgical education, I think, very, very well. When I was a resident, I was a general surgery resident at UAB 07 to 2012. And SCORE came out, at least at my program, when I was a resident, and we started using it, and we really enjoyed the access to the books online. Most of us were already starting to move away from real textbooks that we held in our hands, and we're enjoying being able to look at all the SCORE things we had online. But the problem was whenever we went to prepare for a case, we had almost no way to watch a video of somebody doing that operation. It's one thing to have like a giant Zollinger's textbook of surgery and read that and look at the amazing drawings. Then you show up and you're like, oh, it wasn't anything like that. Or maybe I just didn't understand what I was reading. And so when I got to South Alabama, I came straight out of fellowship in 2013. I immediately had a PGY3 in my office that wanted to apply to colorectal, wanted to make his application more competitive, and he had almost no scholarly activity. So he came in my office a couple weeks into practice, and I was like, man, I'm just trying to not kill people. I'm trying to study for my boards. I don't have any research going on right now. Maybe check back after you're done, which wouldn't have helped him at all. But I was like, you know what? Like, a frustrating thing of me and my peers when we were residents is we didn't have any way to watch videos. We could kind of look up stuff on YouTube, but it was usually an international video that was just not close at all to what our training was like. And so I was like, why don't we just, I was like, I got a laparoscopic right colectomy on next week. We've got really good cameras. We'll record it and we'll make a video. And, obviously all of our societies don't care about how to do laparoscopic right colectomy, but residents do. And so like, why don't we submit it to SCORE? And so we did. And Mary Klingensmith and some people from the American Board of Surgery called and were like, how'd you make this video? And I was like, well, my resident can answer a lot of those questions. But it created a relationship, and it's evidence to me of how SCORE, the American Board of Surgery, they always really value our feedback. They don't just value our feedback, they want our feedback, because just like, I've been in practice a little bit over a decade now, and my residents understand things in a much quicker and much different way sometimes than I do, especially with technology and especially with how they're learning. Like how people learn is changing so rapidly all the time. And so SCORE, I think, recognizes that. And so we were able to hey, we have no way for our residents to safely, for them to watch videos and me know that what they're watching is a reasonable video to watch. And so that led to us probably publishing, 10, 12 videos over just whenever somebody wanted to do one over the course of a few years. I got involved with the board. And then when Amit became the editor-in-chief of SCORE, he made our board a lot bigger so that a lot of more people could do all the work of SCORE. And then I was able to pigeonhole myself into just trying to do these videos because I've always really enjoyed surgical education. And so we have a formal relationship now with the American Board of Surgery and SCORE to make these videos. And our goal is to have 20 videos per year. And so just kind of the process of how we do that. These are all videos, like Ahmed said, the goal is to make them 5 to 10 minutes long. It doesn't matter if it's an 8-hour robotar or a central line. The goal is to have them about 5 to 8 minutes long. Because we know that learning happens quickly now and no one has the patience for the slower learning. And so they're about 5 to 8 minutes long. And our goal is not to say, this is how you have to put in the central line. This is how you have to do an inguinal hernia. Because even in my own division, all three of us do a colectomy very differently with the steps that aren't important, right? And everybody, all of you get that. But we also want to, so we don't try to say you have to put your stroke cards in like this. You have to do your dissect. You have to divide the IMA with this device. We'd show you how we do it in that video, but then we also make sure that we don't say this is exclusive to how this needs to be done, but we do make sure we point out what's safe, right? And what are the key steps? Not just the key steps to say it's an oncologic resection. If you're doing a procedure for cancer, make sure you do these things. That's key to the oncologic outcome. If you're doing something for as you all know, we train each other we train our residents about how to be safe surgeons continuously. And it's what the American Board of Surgery cares about more than anything else, is that we're safe. And so we always make sure we point out the key steps of the resection, whether it's about cancer for a good outcome or the key steps of safety. And so I think you can find, so when we developed the relationship, I just made an Excel sheet of all the core procedures that Carrie sent me. And then it's one thing to say core procedure is cholecystectomy, but there's open, there's laparoscopic, there's robotic, there's IOC. And so it's really each core procedure potentially has 3 or 4 or 5 more procedures that we can create. And so that's our ultimate goal. But our goal is 20 a year because these are very labor intensive procedures. And so we have an institutional board at the University of South Alabama. It consists of me, our chairman, my 2 APDs, and then a couple other people to make sure we have kind of all the surgical specialties covered. And then I roughly assign a couple of years ahead of time from the core procedures, assign 2 residents to each procedure and a faculty member to every potential procedure that's out there. And that really gives, because again, we're a 5-year program. We're not a 7-year program. We're not sending our residents out into the lab for 2 years to do research, but they still need to have scholarly activity. Most of them still go into fellowships and they want to be competitive. And so most of them enjoy the opportunities for the scholarly activity. And these are peer-reviewed publications, educational publications ultimately. And so the residents and the faculty member will video it, and we try to video the whole part, whether it's a robotic case. Obviously, the robotic platform will video the intraperitoneal part, but then we have literally a gimbal with an iPhone. And I mean, you really can't find much better video recording quality than iPhones nowadays. It's so simple with the 3x zoom. The gimbals, we have a giant gimbal for open cases. And so we record both the extracorporeal and the intracorporeal parts, and then we break all that down into about a 5 or 7 minute video. We're able to use iPads to actually highlight certain parts of the procedure. Like, when you looking up at the hiatus for the first time as a junior resident, you don't know what you're looking at. And so we now highlight those things and we pause a little bit, and we point them out. And so I think you'll find the videos are really high quality. I think you'll find they're very educational. Again, we're not claiming this is the only way to do it, but we do think we do a good job of pointing out how to be safe and how to make sure you know what the key procedures are. And then we show you a way to do those procedures. And again, it's been really helpful. Once we review that as an institutional board, we usually give a lot more edits to the video. They go back and make those edits. Then the senior faculty and myself will review it a final time. Then we submit it to SCORE, and then SCORE has a peer review process too before it's published. And so it's been really fruitful. November 2022 is when we put our first video on SCORE through this process. I mean, we're at 26 to date. So we're doing a pretty good job of keeping up with our goal of 20 a year. Certainly it waxes and wanes with holidays and ABSITE and graduation and things like that. But it's been really good. I think something SCORE is working on is trying to make these videos easier to find and embedding them into our core modules. Because certainly even my own residents struggle to find some of the videos sometimes, but yeah, thanks.
I know we only have a couple minutes left. If you have even one question, I would say email me. Dr. Mega, I'm happy to take your question. But if for anyone else who has a question or just wants to just talk to us, literally just email us. We will happily get on a Zoom with you and spend as much time as you need. Dr. Maker.
I think we are the case navigated all very strongly with that practice. And the success that this always started, you know, got together the sport, now we're going separate, and that sometimes we kind of know over the years of why you switch certain modules to sport, they don't correspond to say the CSAP. And the CSAP has a disagreement. The little one, not the big one, really puts it on the sport. It puts the learner on a bad spot, and me in a bad spot in the middle. I mean, each president has carried on an agenda going forward. Agenda for this year in my heart would be to get all the societies signed back up to the sport.
Thank you. All right, I should get you guys to the next session. Thank you all for coming, and we'd really love to meet you in person.